Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is John Paul Rice. First, a couple of announcements. Pick up your copy of the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, right now. Use one of the links in the description. It's available on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, or our Vimeo OTT site. You can also rent it there. We're hoping to start production soon on the next film. If you'd like to help, any donations are greatly appreciated. We are completely self-funded, so it is you that can help make this happen. Right now, if you make a donation of $20 or more, you're going to get a free PDF of Cory Hughes' book, A Warning from History, as well as a free download of our first film, Occult Louisiana. You can also purchase the film, like I said, from our website. That's a great way to help support us. The film is also available on Rokfin with a premium membership. Just go to rokfin.com/FKN+. You'll get access to all our premium content and all the premium content from every amazing creator on Rokfin. You can also help by downloading our episodes directly through our podcast provider, Spreaker. And finally, I am booking guests for March. If you'd like to be a guest or you have suggestions for a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome John Paul Rice. He is a former Hollywood film producer, financial systems analyst, entrepreneur, and advocate for abused children. Since 2008, his films have featured stories based on real-life social issues rarely shown in Hollywood films. His personal lived experience healing from his abusive childhood inspired him to create solutions for a better world based on compassion, empathy, forgiveness, unconditional love, and humility. John Paul, welcome. How you doing?
Christopher, thank you so much. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. I've really been looking forward to this. I want to get your insights and understanding about the true nature of what's been unfolding over the past few years. What's really behind the dystopian agendas and the collective response to not only the blatantly obvious attempts to bring about global chaos, but what is the trajectory of this awakening we're witnessing? And what are the possibilities of what the forces attempting to keep the masses from waking may be rolling out next, what we might be looking to experience and be cautious of in the upcoming years? So lots to discuss.
Yep.
Before we get into any of this is your first time on. Let the audience know more about yourself and what led you down your path.
Okay. Well, first of all, everything that you just mentioned there is a lot, and we'll try to condense it in such a way that it can be universally applied. That's what I try to do, at least in speaking to you and to others.
Wonderful.
My background, although this is one aspect of it, I was in Hollywood for 19 years. I was not a big-time player by any means. I was an independent filmmaker who found himself around a lot of famous people, great people, ones that are not celebrated, and was inspired by my childhood and my experience to understand it in relation to all of this at such, almost I would say, a maddening level that when you talk about spiritual awakening, I don't judge anyone anymore the way I used to on these levels, simply because reality is infinite. Consciousness is infinite. And that wasn't a preconceived notion I had going into any of this. So with LA, I was in Remember the Titans in Georgia. That's where I got my film career started. Before that, I was working in business, and how all of these things came together. It is like a Hollywood story. It's like a rags to riches story. Like kid out of nowhere comes in, lands an audition, gets a part in Remember the Titans, also auditioned for Road Trip, got past the agents, the managers. I just had raw talent. It was authentic. The problem that I had was trauma, of course. And trauma is not to say that it is my trauma and your trauma. But what I came to understand was going out to LA, I got into Mandate Pictures, which before that was Senator International. They did Juno, The Grudge, Harold and Kumar, Stranger Than Fiction. They did the movie Neighbors under Good Universe banner. Joe Drake was the head of that company. I was the seventh or eighth person that was hired in, basically as a person who answers telephones, but also participating in every aspect of the office because we were so small and we were a startup. So everybody got to contribute daily. I read Little Miss Sunshine before it was made. I met a lot of amazing, incredible people there, both in and outside of the office. And I started to see the business of it with financing, marketing, foreign sales, equity investments, banking, all of that. Very different from the celebrity side, very different from the filmmaking side. Took a real interest in it, and then got into developing my own material with another filmmaker. And we ended up making 7 films in 14 years. So I've done independent films. From the first film was 1 Hour Fantasy Girl. It was based on a true story. My last one was Game Day, based on a true story or based on a real life family. And the subjects drew me into the human psyche, the human condition, no matter what the story was. But more importantly, I had an interest in stories that typically, and I didn't set out this way to do this, it just evolved this way, but typically it was stories that Hollywood did not pay much interest or attention to, not because of the size of the budget, but the themes, what the real life story of a girl in 1 Hour Fantasy Girl looks like when she's advertising for fantasy work for $150 an hour on Craigslist. I saw the beauty and the tragedy in one. I saw the beauty of that human being who had been, people talk about stigmatized. I would have written her off as not knowing what was human about her had I just viewed her through that lens. So in each one of our films, there's a human aspect of a mask coming off of somebody metaphorically, and them finding some moment within themselves of courage, resilience, power, strength, like real empowerment, where they have to pull together with their might to overcome the danger that is around them. So I also worked, meanwhile, at the same time in the Los Angeles financial industry for the Bank of the Stars. And I don't talk about that simply because it sounds, ooh, wow, but it was very technical. It was not like I was, hobnobbing and all this stuff, but I saw what I got a peek into what the rich lives are really like, what their incomes are like, not because I went snooping around in there, but because I had access to all that data for the industry that I worked in the technical field, in tech data. I had to look at a lot of data, and sometimes you just have to go into a file and you're looking at someone's finances and you're just like, holy cow. Especially when it becomes a person, in the public persona. And now we get to Epstein and you go, oh, I get it now. Okay, so this is a club. This is a group. These are people who act and feel and believe the same way. And money is just the vehicle to get it done. It's not personal. And how I arrived here was, and why we're on this show today, I think, is because I inserted myself into this discussion about pedophilia, psychopathy, human trafficking, because in 2017, after Trump's election, I went on a deep dive fact-finding mission before YouTube was really heavily censored, and I could watch JFK to 9/11 every man, all the classics that we could go down. Oh, you see this one? Yeah. And probably there's dozens more I didn't, but I started to understand that as the outer world, I was seeking and understanding the depths of the evil that was out there. It was all coming back internally as well. My childhood was a mirror into that, and I didn't know that going into it. it was understood that I understood over the years as I was approaching this subject matter, abuse, trauma, not in those terms, but dealing with these themes in these arenas with these movies, child abuse, schizophrenia. There were other themes explored, but they were not documentaries. They were narratives. They were like a film. You just watch it as a film. But the whole thing with human trafficking, Ronald Bernard, Ted Gunderson. I mean, you go through, like, I just list off all the names, and Franklin Scandal, and sure. And it's just endless. It's endless. And it's existed, really, this evil that we call evil, which is, I'm not here to soften that, but I'm just trying to help people understand where it comes from. It's been with us for a long time. Could this be the end of it? Not in man's world. I don't believe that man's systems can get rid of evil, because it seeks to control the behavior and not go to the source of healing it. But I ended up doing that movie, A Child's Voice, which I released before the whole operation came about. And in August of 2020, I did a live stream talking about our movie that Amazon had pulled down when human trafficking, the lockdowns were there in 2020, and everybody's searching, and human trafficking searches are going up, and they just quietly pulled our movie down without even notifying us. And then I did this video, and it took on a life of its own all around the world. It's been seen, estimated it's been seen over 500 million times. TikTok has been a major. YouTube will not allow it to be uploaded anymore. It calls it harassment and bullying. There was no calls for any violence. There were no calls for any. It was just basically, I was asking people to say, this is the one issue that you need to unite around for the future. The safety and the sanctity and the sacredness of every single child born, which is also you. It's not them that you're doing for, it's for yourself, and asserting the mystery of what you are that is beyond the worldly definitions of their control. And it also brought me into a level of fear that I had never encountered before, having your name out there and a target painted on your back by everybody who at any moment's notice could come in and just kill you and wipe you out. And I didn't do it thinking about that. That's why when I say this to people, it's like, this isn't John Paul Rice premeditating his courage. This was a moment I found myself in, and I had to go through all of the progressions over years as to the layers as to what that actually meant, what my life's purpose was. It was not a martyr. It wasn't a crusader for a cause. It was an inflection point. It just happened to hit at the right moment, and that was beyond my doing, beyond my own human imagination, beyond my own lived experience. That all came to be because of something beyond me. And I had to be good with that. I had to be good with the fact that, yes, there are people who want me dead for just saying what I said, not because I exist, but because of what I said. And there are people that want to spiritually curse me because they hate the fact that they're being called out. And it's not, when we talk about they and them, that word gets changed a lot. I try to really focus on the Luciferians, the 8,000, not Harris, Biden, all of those people. They are controlled assets. These are people that and your audience is intelligent. We don't have to go into all the different histories of this or the names or who they could potentially be or what. But these are people who align themselves with very dark forces because they are the vessel for that. And I'm going to say it like this. What I wish to offer is because of my own suffering and understanding of it. The majority wish to be free. but their freedom, as you can see right now, if they were to reveal themselves, the public at large would want to murder them. Which is not to say that, oh, we need to forgive it all. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's like reconciliation is not easy. It's not, I'm sorry. And you go, okay. It's like, no, if you want to change this world, you have to show them that it's real. You can't, there's no binding agreement. There's no contractual words that can be put on a piece of paper that everybody agrees to adhere to when they don't feel safe. This world is insane because nobody feels safe in it.
Yes.
So their lack of safety, their ignorance, their fears, their scarcity is the projection and the perception onto us, which proves them right when we become psychopathic like they do. So it's inner and outer worlds that we're talking about. And so what I wish to do, at least why I'm here today to talk to you, it's not, this is your show. You brought me on, but the depths and the contemplations that I've had over the last 4 years have been at such a maddening level. I can understand why people go insane. I know what schizophrenia is. I know why it persists. According to Carl Jung, and I happen to agree with this, he quoted, yes, this is a schizophrenic world that we live in. And there's reasons for that. And there's also a harmony and an order to it as well. As much as there is disorder and chaos and disarray, it is truly a world of perceptions.
And
according to how one feels. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, what I see and what seems to have always been unfolding is anytime there is a movement of the people that's really beneficial for the global consciousness overall, what's best for the entire planet ends up being co-opted and hijacked. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with this conspiracy, quote-unquote, movement. It's gotten insane. It's gone off the rails. Some of the conspiracies and theories that I hear coming out are just absolutely bonkers. There's been a level of infiltration, counterintelligence, people just being persuaded to give out bad information, and then they just have the bad eggs that just want to muddy the waters for whatever personal messed up reasons they have. Now, I want to get into that in a second, but before we do that, I want to get your thoughts on Hollywood post-COVID and Hollywood before COVID. You mentioned that it's a Luciferian run system. Is this what has always been the driving force with Hollywood? We know that the marriage between CIA and Hollywood is integral for everything that they have to put forward. It's a perception management, it's culture creation. But recently, I've seen that after COVID, for whatever reason, if they moved too fast, if they made too many mistakes, Hollywood seems to be crumbling. And this is very encouraging, but I'm hoping that there is nothing even more malevolent on the back end of this. I know a lot of honest actors and people in Hollywood that were not in it for the Luciferian power or whatever are being extorted now. They are being thrown under the bus, and there's a lot of madness unfolding in all of these realms, and there is a changing of the guard here, and where it's going to go, I'm really not sure. I'm encouraged that people are looking for more forms of independent entertainment, more truth. But what do you see unfolding? How do you see what was behind Hollywood before COVID and then what happened to it now?
So this is an excellent question. There's many layers to this, but I'm going to try to go back to the times of Frank Capra. It's a Wonderful Life. That's a magician. That's what a magician is. That's a man who said every man is born free and divine. And that George Bailey in that story was the richest man in Bedford Falls because he had friends. That the lie of Potter and the promise of Potter was false, and it could be overcome by self-sacrifice. without being virtuous in that endeavor. He was a guilt-ridden man of lack of achievement, lack of self-worth. And what Capra said was, you got 2 hours with them in the dark. And in that 2 hours, you can show them something they've never seen before. And you have more power in those 2 hours than a president of the United States over 4 or 8 years. And he's right. 100% right. Now, pre-COVID, I can tell you that the industry was already consolidating. So when we're talking about agendas, everybody, you know, Operation Lockstep, whatever, everybody follows the trend. Okay, so if horror is in versus out, we're doing horror. But ultimately, that comes about from the very, very top, who sees an opportunity to translate getting rid of love stories and romantic comedies. You see, you start removing genres, your psychic attachments become diminished, your connections. When everybody's waking up in a horror film versus a love story, and you don't have those authentic connections, your choices become different. So when you look at A24's Civil War, if they had shown that 10 years ago, people would have called that a sci-fi fantasy film. But because we've been psychologically primed, that becomes, quote, predictive programming, but it's planting the seed for it to come. And according to the person who perceives it, it's all about feelings. It's a story of feelings. That's all it is. It's manipulation of feelings. Now, you can say manipulation. All of it is a manipulation. It's a play. But the intention behind it is what drives the result in terms of the awakening in a person. So when we talk about awakenings, let me go back to this thing, though, about pre-COVID. So I just want to explain, like, from a snapshot view, I had people who were creative directors, and those aren't like top level. There's the executives, right? And then you've got senior and president, but a creative director is somebody who's like, let's say 3 rungs down on the ladder, possibly more, depending on what scale you go with. But they're in the middle. They've probably worked a junior desk at an agency. They've worked on creative teams, and now they're the one reading the scripts, doing the coverage, and guiding projects with others. So I had a guy who I took a Lyft ride with in 2019. He had a 3-year first look deal with Sony, canceled like that. He had set up 30 properties around town, comic book properties. And when you get a first look deal and you get a lot, you know, a place on the lot, they've got overhead costs, you got salaries, you got money pouring in to do all this development around town. It takes some years to get some things going, and you've got to spin these bowls, because 1 or 2 may hit big, and then the other ones you want to get set up and get some money, and then, you know, it goes into development. This guy was a Lyft driver because he and all of his friends were losing their first look deal, saying, nope, we're going to do this now, going in a totally different direction. In November of 2019, there was an announcement in the Hollywood Reporter about large executives of 10, 15, 20, 25 years exiting their posts within months of each other and going and working for Silicon Valley, because they saw the coming deconstruction with the streaming model in place, where the overhead for most of these companies was going to be crushed, especially if you knew COVID was coming, because of that contraction, and the shutdowns would expose all the inefficiencies of industry. Money, capital, all of it. Okay. So these guys and gals are going into these positions in Silicon Valley to do what? To buy up digital libraries of films for cheap and then relicense them. So all of this is planned out in stages by the big top people They're not that smart, really. The executors, Iger and all these, I'm not saying they're just incompetent, but they really don't know where they are. They can't read the room. They're there to create the friction that is necessary in order to deconstruct something. Kathleen Kennedy should not be sitting in her chair having lost billions of dollars in IP value. She shouldn't be making another movie, and she should be walked out that door, but she's kept it. She's protected by somebody. She's kept there. There's no argument that this person has a formidable comeback in them. Okay. So as this isn't about Kathleen Kennedy, what I'm saying is that the managers of this place are at a higher level of a game in duality. And what they're playing in us is a story. So if you have an agenda, woke agenda, well, woke agenda is not the agenda. It's the net effect of woke agenda that creates this. Bringing in Lucifer, Satanism as a connecting point to all of that virtuous, but it can be seen as conservative versus liberal, but it's not. It's having a stain and a scarring effect on the entire culture of society, which, by the way, if it was so easy to just eject that, where is our creativity and our imagination coming up with the alternative? It's just to fight it. That's to keep you there. Because it reinforces ego in both sides that split the mirror further in two. So I know this sounds crazy, but when you're talking about wizardry, esoteric arts, dark arts, we're talking about the manipulation of the human psyche for which the majority have no clue how it even works. And what I tell people is that all of us have a Death Star exhaust port that can be hit by them, but we're unaware that it exists until that moment comes. It's there. It's the evidence for it is out there, but we think of it in the extreme of somebody losing their SHIT and going out and hitting and murdering somebody on the street. Oh yeah, that guy. No, that guy is the canary in the coal mine. That's you in the future, potentially, if you don't become an adult in this world of adult children running things. So after COVID, right? Okay, so there's BLM and all of this and the woke diversity agendas, all of this woke. Okay, if we go back in time and we look at the 1990s, identity politics was ejected. It was rejected. It was. This time around with the younger generation and 20 years since 9/11 and a world in decline, you don't have the luxury of ignoring that, because that is somebody's lived experience now. Their fear, the world of fear, is here. And they can plug in and insert that, oh, you're depressed and suicidal, you must be this. Because it feels true. Because it's given to them from a credible source who sounds authentic. This is how this play is made, baby. And I don't mean it like it's a hopeless game, but it's a hopeless game to argue it and to try to change how people feel according to what your beliefs are in opposition to their ignorance. This is the game they want us to play. This is the game that's going forward. And what Hollywood will become, it will it's centralized, decentralized simultaneously. But here's the bottom line. The idols of worship are here. The icons that will be followed are here. The starlets. Ariana Grande represents an embodied archetype, an inverted one. Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, all of these people are here to capture your imagination. That's what makes them real. They're just simply there to capture your imagination and download their harmonies and their frequencies, which, as people started noting recently with the Netflix thing, the Obama movie, they had a subsonic sound wave going through there that actually makes your organs vibrate. You can't hear it. Somebody pulled the track down and looked at there were other soundtracks that were running in the background. They found 3 more. There were 4. And one of them was a subsonic sound wave going through that you can't hear, but your body feels. And that's a tension that they're adding to. So what Hollywood is doing, just like COVID is the jab in, they're going more invasive. They're coming deeper into your mind and your body to control it through subtle forces that you don't see, that are shifting your behaviors in such a subtle way. So you can hate the agenda, right? But the people taking it in who don't know that this is all programming, even people who do and say, it doesn't affect me, that's bullshit. That is bullshit. Anybody who sits there and can sit here and go, oh, I listen to all these sounds, but it doesn't affect me. Okay, fine. That's your life. You can live it. But understand that they have invested billions of dollars into getting that to you so that you can ingest it for a future date to be cashed out. That is their investment. All of the agendas that are going to be cashed out in this time. So there's another side to this, which is art, which is rebellion. So there's going to be counter propaganda. Sure. Daily Wire. I don't give a shit. What I'm talking about is a rediscovery of art and language and meaning and purpose. That's what they've defined for us our whole lives. And what that is your child's joy inside that heart, the creator, being taken, extracted from that joy, and having it redefined for you in the contemporary. That's how they get away with history. They take the feelings of the contemporary and they redefine what they are by giving you false positives, objects in relation that appear different but are the same as you. This is the mystery we're in. And yeah, go ahead. I know that's a lot, but go ahead.
That's great information. It seems like we've been pulled so far into this false reality collectively that the only way out is to go through it, to go through the experience of whatever dystopian reality lies ahead until we can reverse our thinking and the way that we perceive everything to get back to a natural state. But it's going to take a lot more to get there. And I want to get your insights into the younger generations. Do you think that they are completely lost at this point, or that we have a chance with the pendulum swing? We all know it swings to far left and then it swings back to far right. With this upcoming swing to far right that is pretty obvious it's upcoming, do you think we have a chance to reel in some of the younger generations and reverse some of the damage that we've seen? Because I know that each side is really part of the same bird, and it's just all about separation. It's all about getting us to hate each other and as far away from each other's ideologies and coming together and discussing this in a conducive manner. But it seems like with what is upcoming that we may have a chance to maybe regain some of the ground that we collectively lost as humanity, maybe reel back this transhumanism a little, and give us a chance to become aware of what's really happening overall. What do you think?
Well, I agree with that sentiment. I think that what ultimately is our folly in that is that as much as we like to think of ourselves as individuals, we've been programmed to be collectivists from the very beginning of identity in relation to self and other. And that's really not the problem, because you can re-indoctrinate somebody, but you can't change what you're asking for is, can we change these behaviors by force? No, you cannot. I mean, you can, but okay, so instead of drugging kids, you're going to chip them. Right? So the calls, okay, so the pendulum swing, let's just talk about this. What we're really talking about is Nazis and communists, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the communists wear the perversion on the sleeve, the Nazis covered up with the Holy Cross. They're the cleanup crew. right? We're going to take all this bad behavior and we're going to get rid of it, and we're going to potentially purify it. You know, I'm sure your folks have got the Atlanteans and how the purity of the race, they want to reestablish. Okay, yeah. Got it. But how? That's the question. So you want to reestablish a harmonization in society again, equilibrium, give counterbalance versus a pendulum swing to the right. It's just another authoritarian regime with technology to go after the bad actors. And I've said this for years, you know, okay, you want to take all the pedophiles off the stage, string them up, kill them, make examples out of them, doesn't stop a psychopath. Sorry, psychopathy does not. When you look at, when you look at car chases and how they end, they all end the same for the person trying to get away from the cops. Yet it doesn't stop somebody 20 years later after seeing that day that they went to go rob that bank or whatever crime that they did that they thought they were going to get away. It didn't stop them from going, oh, you know, take me. I know how this ends. Some of them do, but the majority don't. Okay, so what we're talking about is our unconscious selves. I know this sounds kind of strange. What you're talking about are potentials. And it's not, I'm going to tell you this is not an either or situation anymore. This isn't a Coke or a Pepsi or a Reebok or Nike. This is the world of everything, everywhere, all at once. How to sort that out. The cohesive nature that we all had the ignorance, we had the luxury of being ignorant of, has materialized to such a place that everything is going, what I call going back to its origin, going back to one. So the Great Reset is underway. It's pushing everybody to go back and revisit their lives and where they feel good with what they did. No matter, from the narcissist to the most enlightened, but potentially. But what I'm saying is it's a revisionist history. But it's not a cohesive story. It's just a story you've told yourself. So then there's reality, which is what? Everyone's programmed, and everyone's going to run their program according to what they know and what they believe is true. And when you get into a world like this, you're starting to define, okay, what's true and what's false, what's good and what's evil, what's real and what's fiction. And then you go, and then there's me. Who am I and why am I here? And what the hell is God in all of this? These are the definitions that are being laid down, the preconditions for everyone to define these things for themselves, to write their own story. Because what you're talking about is, okay, if you're a kid who's grown up believing in Santa Claus your whole life and nobody told you that Santa Claus doesn't, you have to, then you go, oh, Santa Claus was a pedophile. What are the implications of when you run out of, okay, what if all of your beliefs turn out to be false? Then you have to ask yourself, well, then what's true? Mm-hmm. And there's no adult guidance in that world. So what is true is going to be true. That's true for you. Is going to be different from someone else's. It's his truth, my truth. You know, it's okay. There's no language, and there's no cohesive story that can bring all of this back together, except in the story that we're in. So the definitions, the worldly definitions of things, as they are believed, exist, no matter what the truth is out there that proves that false, is going to be believed until it can't be believed anymore. But those are just stories. They're stories that continue because of feelings. And the person in the contemporary doesn't see where they came from and where they are now. There's a certain level of amnesia that persists. So what one remembers, how they remember it, what they feel about it can be redefined for them without them even knowing. You have bad daddy Trump. Joe Biden looks fucking great. right?
Yeah.
Bush looks great. When 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, no, that guy is horrible. He's stupid. He's going to get us killed. But I've got a bad daddy now who I've got to stop because but he can be also my good daddy too. This is the problem. We are thinking these people are us and that they are, we are them and they are us. They are not. They are on the level of humanity. But when it comes to their own understanding and their own faculties inside of them, they're in a different time and space than you, dude. Mm-hmm. They wake up. They may think that they piss excellence when they wake up, but their life could be full of surprises and terrors that they have to contend with. And that takes them out of a creative mindset, by the way. So what does this look like? Well, it's what Mark Passio says, and I happen to agree to such a deep level that it is about care. Care is what deoccultifies the world, deprograms the world. Care makes the false belief false. Because you came in and you did something that nobody else could see possible with your imagination and your heart's intention, not to save the world, but to be at the center of your own universe. And being at the center of your own universe, you are your brother's keeper. Meaning, all who have trespassed against you and wronged you, you're the only one that can forgive them without there being a reconciliation between the two. Warring halves. It's the warring halves inside of us, Christopher. It's the warring halves inside of us that are the civil war out there. Mm. The things that I hate about that person or I can't stand about them. It's not that I'm wrong to feel that way. But then I have to take it back a step and go, where is this coming from? What are my real thoughts? What is my real voice that's being spoken? Rather than, MAGA, or that, like acquiescing to an idea that really only exists in my head. But when played out, you look at all the nuances and the subtleties and the details and the distinctions in everyone, no one's cohesively that one thing, or that thing means all of these things. No, it doesn't. So we're in a time where knowledge, the world of knowledge, is corrupted. It's weaponized. The definitions of the words and their meaning will change. When you take reality as infinite and you've got all these experts and these subject matter experts and people up there, I don't even care that they promoted anything that you disagree with. Even the ones who are in opposition to them also are equally as flawed and should not be listened to as in their absolute state of their awareness, because you don't know what's going on in here and up here. They can say all the right things that are true, but what's motivating that and what's in it for them to say that, you have no idea what that is. This is why intention and care, you will know them by the fruits that they bear. Yeah. You build it and they will come. You ease their pain and they will come. You show them that ignorance can be overcome and reduction of unnecessary suffering, showing that, okay, there's these two choices, but then there's all these over here. And which one is it that we can do? Right. I had to train myself to do this because I was in my left brain all the time, thinking, analyze. And it doesn't allow for you to visualize something that truly, as you know, when you discover this, when you feel something is true and you see it, you can go and create it. 100%. You find your way from the vision. This is art. All of us are artists. All of us are creators. This compartmentalization of all of these different institutions and industries, completely despiritualized, by the way. Yes. So there's nothing in them except, okay, there's knowledge, but then what's the higher thing? Wisdom. Mm-hmm. I don't seek to be right. I seek to be wise. 100%. I'd like to be right, but if I'm going to be right about something, I've got to know from my own discernment, and my own intuition tells me that this isn't right for me, even though it may appear to be so, or to someone else saying, God, I can't believe you gave up that opportunity. Well, that was an opportunity to you. It wasn't for me.
Right on. Now,
Anyway.
let's discuss how to possibly navigate these transhuman waters that we're headed into.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Silicon Valley is not only the new Hollywood, but is the end-all be-all of our technological future.
Mm-hmm.
AI has been integrated into almost everything that we interact with online. We can
Mm-hmm.
no longer use, say, Google or any search engines to do quote-unquote research anymore. It's only
Mm-hmm.
bringing up daddy government-approved
Mm-hmm.
information. YouTube, forget about finding anything of use on there anymore. It's all big titty yoga, dog and cat videos, things like that. This is what, this is what they push and promote.
Mm-hmm.
And in these conspiracy truther realms, we have this infiltration going on, counterintelligence, like I was talking about earlier, people just being inserted to muddy the waters. How
Mm-hmm.
do you see that we can navigate through this transhuman ideology that they're trying to force on us, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get us to integrate ourselves and immerse ourselves completely with technology,
Mm-hmm.
therefore extinguishing a lot of the spiritual aspects of who we are?
Mm-hmm.
How do we find a way out of this? Is there a way
Okay.
out?
So yeah, there's sometimes I talk about Deus Ex Machina events,
Mm.
like an EMF, right? However that would come to be, um, it would have its downside and it would have its upside and something like that. I don't recommend we have to go down that road in order to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
But for certain, transhumanism is an agenda that is not being, okay, when I talk about the agenda is in us first. We're the receptor. We have to receive it and believe it's real. So transhumanist, I mean, I don't need to talk about what it is or define it,
Mm-hmm.
but what it basically seeks to do is to override the divine intuition and that connection that is beyond this world.
Mm-hmm.
So in overstimulating the left hemisphere of the brain, you've basically created everyone to think and think and think and think and process and process and process and process. And basically what you're seeing in corporate America today is enormous inefficiency, because to be able to be creative and to think is like a premium. And the way they've structured this reality that we live in, only 2% of all people in the world have a genius level of creativity, yet 98% of us are born with it. So they've stripped. So you understand what I'm talking about is like the odds. Okay, those people are just as ignorant in their own respect as we are. The appearance of them being the purveyors, the billionaires, the persons in the know, no, they're just as ignorant. Okay, they would never say that. You could never say, oh, you're just as ignorant as me. It's like, I got degrees. I've got billionaire corporate, even if they're made. But because of not just celebrity culture, but the impressions that we have made and the what I would call a degenerate society, what I'm talking about, degenerate generation, like this generation of children is the most degenerate generation that will be in our lifetime unless we enact, like when I say it can be reversed, okay, we're looking for a mechanical answer in this, and their mechanical answer is transhumanism. Mm-hmm. If we look for a non-material answer, and this is the one where people go, but I know, but I want to win. So it's having, we can't let go yet. We haven't been able to let go. That's why we're still stuck here in this story. So transhumanism will become a thing. It already is, but only for those people who accept that illusion as being real. The reason why it will persist beyond this time is because it is a non-feeling, non-judgmental entity that gives you the answer you want. Mm-hmm. Right. So with people who don't have this part of their brain active, they will subjugate their judgment and their authority over to another authority. So if we go from human beings now being flawed, corruptible, dangerous, to leveraging technology to isolate and keep us protected and safe from bad human behaviors in all ways, hackers, threats, shopkeepers, store owners. What you're talking about is in high population centers where people are highly educated, but also extremely ignorant and highly reactive. That's where they're going to get it in first. So the cities where, okay, if you look at New York City and the trajectories in play there, you're basically purging all of the middle class and lower class out that can't afford to stay there. And what do you have left is millionaires and billionaires who what do they want? They want to protect their fortress. So if there's not enough human capital out there that can stop the bad actors, they're going to deploy greater systems of control that make the population acquiesce to the vision that they see is safe. That's because they're in the know, right? They've got a lot to risk. They don't just have families. They've got entire enterprises. I'm not taking their argument for them, but I'm looking at it from their point of view, and they'd go, shit, people are crazy. I know how effed up I am and crazy, but I keep it in line. This, I can't have, I can't open a shop in New York City in Times Square and have people potentially risking their lives to come to my store to buy a handbag. So there's going to have to be a certain set of protocol now, because again, this is all about action, reaction, and it's man's law. And man's law always comes after the fact to overcorrect the bad behavior. So does it last? That's the question, right? Will it last? Don't know. I believe that what's going to happen is it's not just two worlds, but there will be a parallel society. Mm-hmm. I think that path is very narrow for a lot of people because it's not something you can gather up people and say, reject it all and leave, leave your job, leave it. No, everybody's lives are so dimensionally complicated that you're not going to get total buy-in. This is what I was saying it's about showing that it can be done versus making an argument with somebody or debating how best to do something. All of those people, Jordan Peterson, the ARC, all that stuff, that is all of what that is. That is how best, we're tasked with figuring out what's best for 7 billion people on this planet. Are you effing kidding me? Why don't you just go to Bill Maher's show where he can have all his political pundit pals on there and not have Joe Sixpack or anybody else talk about what's really effing going on in this country? But you have the luxury of getting somebody from MSNBC. You get what I mean? It's that kind of thing. It's a mismatch.
Yes.
They are never going to know what your lived experience is like. They can only do so in relation to theirs. That's it.
Yes.
Anyway.
They've had this sheltered lifestyle of these insane ideologies being pumped into them since the time they were born, basically being groomed to these belief systems that they can see no other way, that's the way the world works to them. Now, for the last half of the show, I want to get your thoughts on how we can navigate the future. There's a lot of predictive programming, this seeming creation of this new era of disease X, possibly civil war, alien invasions. These are all the predictors we've been seeing over the past few years from movie and television medias, events that are unfolding in reality and being reported by the media, and all the confusion behind everything. Example, the Florida Mall aliens. Is this a psychological operation? Is this military technology? Is this just something to get people riled up and separated as usual? Maybe all of the above. I don't know, but there's a lot of predictors coming out about what we might see in the upcoming years.
Yeah.
What's the best way to navigate through the bullshit?
Well, at a certain point, you're going to have to let it go, because it's a story that writes itself from here on out. And what I mean by that is the music will live on regardless of whatever form it takes, because what we're dealing with is a once in a lifetime. When I say once in a lifetime, maybe once in several thousands of years, what we've done is we've been shortening. We're on a cycle that is coming to an end. Mm-hmm. It's been sped up for an intended desire so that there is a collapse of some order, and then an order can come in to be rebuilt. Okay, what we can expect to see is more, I would say, supernatural, paranormal phenomena, because dimensions are merging or collapsing, and the veils are being pierced. So, satanic entities, of course, in a world of deep fake, again, if you plug yourself into this, you're programming yourself. It's like, you have to imagine if you could live on a remote island, although you still have to interact with the world, you have to make your home the sanctuary. You can't, they can do whatever they're going to do. But at a certain point, you have to realize that what they've cast upon the world is the fear of dying and suffering, which anchors you in the material. So the polarities at play here are vast. 2 years ago, I don't talk about these things like I get downloads and insights, but I saw where 12 conscious realities exist. I saw it in a form of a sphere, kind of like where there's objects in relation to each other, but they're all distinct in their archetypal depiction or descriptions. And what it really means is a separation of psyche on both the true and the inverse coming online simultaneously. It's like in a quantum state. It's mirrored neurons, yet experiencing the same yet different experience perception. So what do I see? I see that the threats will increase. However, they can be believed and materialized. So, if you're talking about a dirty bomb in New York City, that's a game changer for the world. Okay, it is. And the reason why is, regardless of what the facts are, it's the fear that is the agenda. So the agenda is fear, scarcity, ignorance, fear. That's it. That's how they control you. And wherever those parts are in you is where they will have the upper hand to dictate what it is that you will be able to do. Now, at the end of the day, you can say, and this was actually something I saw earlier today, one of the Weinstein brothers, not Harvey, Brett Weinstein, and I think his brother, he said there are far worse things than death. And he said that really hit him. And as someone who has had to confront that, I've had near-death experiences since I was a child, because of my trauma. There is a part of me that doesn't want to die and doesn't want to be in pain, but there's also another part of me that knows that that is temporary and that we do live on. What is true never dies. So when people talk about what you and I and other people say, that there can be a day where all this, I will tell you, the day it happens is the day you imagine it and enact that plan. Like, you imagine it to be true and you live that life, the frequency that's being broadcast, you're the calm in the storm. You're the anomaly that's not freaking the F out. You don't march your troops into battle to, for glory and all this other stuff. It's like, no, I'm the shepherd. My model, which I've had direct experiences that I can't deny, is Jesus real? Oh yes. That energy, whatever that is very real. Very real. And I don't have a choice to believe. I have to know. I mean, when I say I have to know, not for anybody else, for myself, I'm like, oh yeah, that wouldn't have happened had I had, it was just left to worldly matters. Okay. So what I say is this: seek to become the most honest, authentic, and wise person you know. And when you do that, you'll embark upon a journey that will require courage, that can't be premeditated. But it is the role of the shepherd who watches over the flock of the 100, and the one that goes and strays, he searches day and night, high and low, to find it, and then dresses its wounds, gives it something to eat, picks it up on its shoulders, and carries it back. And he says, I will do that according to my own accord, over and over and over again. Because why? It's the same thing as washing their feet. And they're like, Master, what are you doing? He said, do this in remembrance of me, because you are the unrealized Christ in this equation.
Right on. Now,
you are the unrealized Christ. That's what it is. We're all worthy sons and daughters of a living creator. And if we started to live in accordance with natural law, man's law would not have much of a chance to survive and thrive as it does. Just
100%.
really is the truth. Yeah.
It is. Now, to close out,
yeah,
I want to get your thoughts on what I believe is one of the most important things that we should be doing individually.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, after COVID and all the madness started to unfold, I was in a very lost place. I had started to do this show. I was working a corporate job that I hated, and I wanted to make this my career, and it was my passion. I knew it was something I should be doing. Had no idea how to get there. One evening, I go into a deep meditation. I'm going through a horrible relationship. I hate my job. I'm very depressed. And the only thing that really is giving me peace and happiness is producing this show and talking to the wonderful guests that I have. And I just want to make that into something that I can do to thrive off of. And I had no idea how to get there. And that evening during meditation, I make contact with what I now understand as my higher self. And the instructions given by my higher self to achieve my goals. First thing, heal childhood trauma. That was the biggest thing that I had to do to pick myself up and start to walk the path that I knew that it was my true soul mission to go on. This was the biggest thing that my higher self explained to me that I had to do in order to proceed. And other than that, I had to quit my job, and I had to take a leap of faith that by doing this and following my passion, that the universe would, in a sense, take over and help me down my path, which I am grateful for that experience, because within a few months I took out my 401k, moved to Colorado, and here I am. This is now my career, and I'm making films, and it's a beautiful thing. But if I hadn't taken that advice and healed up my childhood trauma, bad relationships, karmic relationships, everything that I was screwing myself over with, I would not be here right now. And I think that if more people could just realize that they have a wounded child inside themselves that is preventing them from experiencing the things that they should be experiencing in this lifetime, I think we could make a lot more progress collectively. What do you think?
100%. I've not the same experience as you, but thank you for sharing that, because that's something that doesn't make sense, right? At the time. It's like, oh, you're hearing voices in your head. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it was a practical thing that spoke to you, right? So when I did my movie, A Child's Voice, I did not realize that what I was saying is it's the child's voice inside of you that has to be answered. Can you hear me? Can you help me? This world is crying out for help because of that child's distress right now. And it is not to say, and this has been said by many people, but to say that you are unscarred by this reality is to say that your mother and father were not programmed. Your mother and father who wanted to love you, and when I say that, their optimism in that equation before everything was known. is ultimately the story that they could not escape from. So what I realized in this time was when I started going back and I experienced healing my bloodline on a level of grief and sorrow that I would not put on my worst enemy. In terms of feeling that in my heart, felt like neutron bombs going off inside, or collapses of stars, and emotional purges that, I mean, uncontrollable crying, fetal position. I believe that as much as I was cursed in a way, I was also given this gift of knowing of what transmutation really is. Transcendence is the part of the awareness and the change in the direction, but the transmutation is literally alchemy, in the sense that you came from this and you resurrected yourself. If I look at my father, I don't really go into my detail about my family as much, but if I were to take my mother and father's rap sheet and put it on a newspaper article, most people would call for their murder. They weren't satanic. They were possessed by satanic forces, as was most of my bloodline history. That's for me to discern and decide what that means to me and what that is and why I'm here. But John Paul Rice, the human person, is a very flawed man, very ignorant, extremely foolish, and could have killed himself multiple times without him even realizing that he was that much danger. And many people could say these things. So what is the universal issue here? Suffering. When somebody compares their story of their childhood to another, oh God, I didn't have that bad a one. We got to stop there. We got to stop where we let ourselves off because someone else's story is so much worse than ours. Now, that may be true, but pain is pain is pain. And what I started to realize was when I heard someone else's story in relation to mine, I go, I don't know how you survived that. They're looking at me going, I don't know how you survived yours. So what does that mean? Well, you're here. This is a miracle. What does that mean in all the people that came before you? Well, you're the reason why they came before you. You're the reason you are the reason they existed in the first place. Now, contemporary. So what have you been left with? A broken world. What can you do? Pick up the pieces, make them whole again in yourself. For who? For yourself, but all that you honor and cherish. In the flawed abilities of my dad. My dad went to Notre Dame. My dad was an incredible athlete. My dad was a handsome man. My dad had the ability to create his own company from scratch. All of that treasure was gone because of alcoholism, sexual abuse in the family. Say narcissism. We could classify all of the behaviors. It doesn't matter. Who was he before that, for which I entered the story later? He was me. His suffering was my suffering, and my suffering was his suffering. No different. Only here. Now, the problem is, how do I reconcile that with a person who's dead? How do I reconcile it with a person who can't be reconciled with? This is the cross that you bear. This is the burden that you came in here to clean. If you look at all of those who came before you and what they stood for and what they really say, the life that they wished they could have lived in relation to how you wished you could, how the world you wished it could have been, here's your chance to get a second chance. Boomer, peace, love, and understanding. You get a second chance if you don't condemn the Gen Z that hates your guts and is going to be given AI with a bunch of millionaires and billionaires backing it to cut you out and kill you properly. Okay. That's what you're up against. So how do you play that card? Well, I can persecute and condemn and hate them, but you're really doing it to yourself and you're doing it to all who came before you. This is the ignorance that we have to overcome. in order to reduce the unnecessary suffering that persists within each of us and all who came before us who did not have this opportunity. This should be seen as an opportunity. It's a challenge of a lifetime, but it's an opportunity to eclipse all the ignorance that is pouring in, all the ignorance that came before us, all the unawareness, all the blindness that was downloaded into you as reality in a world of knowledge. How do you figure out what's true and false? What's true and false in yourself? You have to get honest with yourself at such a level that no one else can come in and dictate to you through their ignorant opinion what you are. You have to know your own value and your own worth. And it is something that can't be obtained in a daily workshop. The beginning, but then there's also steps that you can't map out. Here are the 10. Like if I were to get, it's just like you, if you were to give me all the steps that you took, it's like, yeah, they don't follow any order.
Yeah.
They're basically you trying to learn how to play again, like a child. And be good with it and not live in a delusional fantasy that basically is another. It's like, okay, there's home. You're Dorothy. And then you go to Oz. And you think this is a magical land of Oz, when actually everybody there is living under the delusion that there is a great wizard there. But Dorothy is clueless. She's naive. She's innocent, but she's also clueless. She needs to go find her mind, her heart, and her courage in friends. And then there's a wicked witch, right? And she always just wants to go back home. And she could have always gone home. But where are we? There's that side of the mirror, and then the other side of the mirror is Alice in Wonderland. And Alice knows that this world is full of shit, rejects it. I'm not marrying this person. I'm not playing in this world. I'm literally going into my psyche, and I'm going to find that there's a red queen, a dark mother there that rules the land with fear and tyranny. And she has to use her wits and her courage and her way about herself, which is kindness, that starts to show all these people who've lived in fear and oppression that they are cared for by her for real. And then they want to help her. So there's depths to this we could go, but this is what I'm saying is that you have to face yourself in this time. If you want, this is not the absolute, but if you want a clue, Westworld season 1 is those themes are relative to right now. And what they do in that world is it's a godless world. So your true self and your desires and your drives are you, but that's not what it is. So there's Dolores, which is basically Dorothy and Alice, if you want to look at it that way. There's Maeve, and you've got Akicha, which is the in the second season, which is my love. He says it to may my love live on in your memory. And I think that that's really where we're talking about is this is a memory of a lost love that's coming back, because the sins of the father and the sins of the mother are returning right now, going through everyone's line, coming out unaware that all of this is coming back onto us. It's a mind control program that's going upside down and sideways. And there's no straightening it out with knowledge and story alone and beliefs. It's persistence of self in relation to the higher parts of you that you can't prove to anybody. But look at where you are. You couldn't have written yourself in human form a story like that, but something else did. And what that is and why that is the great mystery as to what it all means. Are we in this machine together? Are we in this collective together? Are we changing matter? Are we changing time? Well, I believe that, yes, if you don't consent to their version of the world or someone else's version of the world, and you live in accordance with what's true in you, yes, you will heal your trauma. But here's the other thing. This is the last thing I want to say about this. It takes two. You can bring yourself up to a certain point and be willing and tackle it, but ultimately love. And what I mean by that is a person who is your mirror, that accepts you for who and what you are, sees the best in you, and wants that for you. Nothing else. This is why I say where the shepherd comes in, it's the person that's not the martyr, but is, I know your value. I know at the core of what you're doing. It's not foolish. It's not being, oh, yeah, we should just let these people want to kill it. No, what I'm saying is it's the willingness that does not get put out on social media. There's no acts of virtue. There's no self-congratulations, like appearances. Those people online are not living with you 24/7. They don't know who the hell you are. They're popping in and out of your life in moments, which is not to say they're all false, but you can't construct a reality for which you can model yourself after according to the appearance of things. Mm-hmm. So this is more like you have to be the author of your own story and your higher self coming in, and the synergy of that, or let's say the harmony of that balance, our dysregulated nervous system, our soul's mismatch with us, all of these distortions are because of the worldly ideas that have been imposed upon us and have been downloaded into our DNA that require a signal to come in. And if you change your frequency, if you change your signal, your receiver, you become a vessel for that versus a vessel that can be painted on in a world of Satan. And that is, I mean, as simple as I can put it, if you heal yourself, Lucifer does not have any guidance over you. And when I say heal yourself, I don't mean it's declarative that it is finished forever. It's finished when it's finished. What I mean is your life, when it's finished, it's finished, however that comes to be. But there is a greater purpose at play that is not seen here in the material going on. And that's where our worldly definitions and the way things come at us, we have to be willing to let them go. In fact, we have to be willing to cut off 90% of the shit that comes at us and go, okay, this is what I can deal with here today, right now. I can get out of bed and I can write. Willingness, effort, not giving up. That's the bottom line. And if you can find another person to do that with, you'll be in heaven. However, you will confront yourself in every choice that you make, which means that you're going to have more lessons than you had previously. It's just that you finally have to see them with new eyes to be able to understand, I get why I repeated that mistake. Mm-hmm. And now I repent, which basically I can see the error of my ways, which is not a guilt and shame position. It's just like, oh, I had all my attachments to love, to pain. And that I sought an audience of people or a person who understood that pain, but couldn't free me from it. They needed me to be in that painful position so that their identity was also of value to me. And, you go into trauma bonding and all this stuff, but really what it is all of us are seeking love in all the distorted forms. And that's why when I look at, the Luciferian psychopathic energies and all this stuff, it's like they are too. Mm-hmm. On an extreme level, where it doesn't have any value to them, they're trying to imitate it so that they can feel safe in their world, to sedate us. But if we are the real thing and we come about that way in our conscious evolution, we can show that there's another way. There's always another way, even another way than the way that is shown or the way that appears. There's always another way. That is felt here, but it's imagined. It's the child's imagination, that 98% creative genius that has to come back. It really does. And however you can get there with meditation, hemisync, psychedelics, trauma releases, activities, our human lives are a complicated set of variables that differs from person to person, but the universal themes are all there. We all are a child who wishes to be loved at the very beginning until the last of our days. And we may kill to get it, and we may fight to get it, and we may hate to get it, because we're in love with all the wrong things. Mm-hmm. If we become in love with the right things, which are very few things, it's not all the things out there. When you love this being inside of you and you can love another human being, you will love the world. You'll love everything about the world because you won't see the pain out there that's reflecting back into you. And I've looked at everything that I've ever seen in myself that I've hated in another person or not liked about somebody or been upset about. I had to start thinking about, what is that feeling really telling me?
Mm-hmm. I love it. That was a profound note to end on. John Paul, thank you so much. We will definitely have to do this again in the future. We kind of barely scratched the surface on some of our reality here, so I'd love to dig deeper in the future. Now, before we close out, remind the audience how they can find out more about you, your films, and everything you've got going.
Sure. So the company, No Restrictions Entertainment, is where I made my 7 films. You can find that online. You can also find most of our movies on Tubi, Roku, and some others now, because we've gotten on other platforms. You can find me. I'm not super active on social media, but I have a Telegram channel, No Restrictions JPR. I post there more regularly. I have a private Instagram account at No Restrictions, and then Twitter is there. But again, I'm kind of dieting on social media posts and stuff like that.
Right on. Perfect. Yeah. John, thank you so much. We'll do it again in the future. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will be talking again tomorrow. We'll see you then.